Hello, my name's Gavin. This is Westwood Books, and this is the second of my holiday book hauls. There are three book towns in the UK: Wales, England, Scotland. I don't think there's one in Northern Ireland. Happy to be corrected. Wales has Hay-on-Wye. This is easily the most famous. This is easily the biggest in terms of bookshops. It has a literary festival which attracts people from the world over, and you cannot move without walking into a bookshop. That's no bad thing. Scotland has Wigtown. I've not been to Wigtown. I can't pass comment. England has Sedbergh. Now, Sedbergh needs some more bookshops still. Its biggest bookshop is a firm which transplanted itself from Hay-on-Wye to Sedbergh. Many of the shops that aren't bookshops have a little book section of stuff on sale. But the three main bookshops are Clutter Books, which is a charity shop, the Tourist Information Centre, which is mostly bookshop and has shelves there which are leased out to a number of smaller sellers, and the big guy in town, Westwood Books, which used to be a firm in Hay-on-Wye and is now in Sedbergh. Unlike Hay-on-Wye, it is not somewhere I think you could spend a week and not run out of things to do, but it's a great day's activity. And if you do feel you're running out of things in terms of bookshops, don't worry, Sedbergh is on the edge of the Lake District. Great walks, stunning views. Before I look at any of the books I hauled, I want to thank Roy from Roy Reads Anything for sending to me Excalibur from Sanders and Laubenthal. He correctly surmised I had gaps in my collection of Ballantine adult fantasy, and very generously sent me a copy of this book, which I'm excited to get to. So, Clutter Books first. This is a smallish shop, but it is packed to the rafters with books, and there are some interesting finds there. And two of those books were actually from the bargain bin, so 50p each for these. A copy of Around the World in 80 Days, Jules Verne, a Fontana Books paperback, and Kiowa Trail from Louis L'Amour, so a Louis L'Amour that I've not read, which is most of them, to be fair. And for the princely sum of £1, Richard Adams' Shardik. From the Bodley Head, from 1925, this is At the Sign of the Reine Pédac from Anatole France. And Anthony Hope, Rupert of Hentzau. So this is the sequel to The Prisoner of Zenda. And this is printed in 1944 in the UK. So, has a special mark here, Book Production War Economy Standard. This reprint is in conformity with the authorised economy standards, paper being at something of a premium in 1944. Now, I've heard mixed things about Rupert of Hentzau, and it could be that from a literary point of view, this was not a great use of scarce paper resources, but I'm going to read it and make my own mind up. I really did enjoy Prisoner of Zenda. That was Clutter Books. The Tourist Information Centre, as I said, under one roof, has books from a number of different sellers. And some very interesting books, but all of them a little bit on the pricey side. I don't know what rates the Tourist Information Centre are charging these sellers, But everything that was there seemed to be at pretty much of a premium. And it's a real mismatch of different stuff. So there is no fiction section or any subject section because everyone has their own set of shelves, which is then subdivided. So yes, there is a fiction section, but there are about a dozen or more of them. I was tempted by a few books and put them all back, except in one case. This is probably the most obscure book I've bought on the entire trip. But this is Vimana Aircraft of Ancient India and Atlantis from David Hatcher Childress. I'm doing this because of the project I'm embarking on. Atlantis is going to be a key part of this. David Hatcher Childress is also the author of something I did get recently, a book he co-wrote with Richard Shaver, Lost Continents and the Hollow Earth. So the author's name was an attraction here. But this book poses a very simple question. Did the ancients have the technology of flight? No, of course they didn't. But this book's going to try to convince me otherwise over the course of some 320 pages. Inside here is the entire 4th century BC manuscript, the Vimanika Shastra by the ancient author Maharishi Bharadwaja. I actually pronounced that correctly. Translated into English by J.R. Josia of the International Academy of Sanskrit Research. It includes the secrets of Mercury vortex propulsion, the incredible Rama Empire of India and the devastating wars that destroyed it, secret libraries and ancient science, Atlantean aircraft and technology, Sanskrit scholars commenting on the Vimana texts, and profusely illustrated with drawings and photographs. All this and much, much more. That's not me selling the book, that's what the book says. Leaving the biggest shop to last, Westwood Books, is across 2.5 floors. This shop has an extensive collection of first edition and signed first editions and signed editions, all of which are quite toppy on prices. It has some new books, but is not primarily a new book retailer. It has huge selection upstairs of all different subjects. There is an if a bookshop has an entire shelf devoted to books on chess, you know you're probably onto a good thing. There are sections on literary biography. Some of the organisation is a little bit confusing. Maybe I just needed to spend more time there. There were at least 2 distinct science fiction fantasy sections, which was a little odd. But here is a book that plugs, I think, the final hole in a series, and one that is all about Atlantis, so good stuff for me, and that is The Serpent by Jane Gaskell. And the second mention of Roy in one video. I swear I saw Roy talk about this book previously. When I saw it, it did trigger a memory. So Tomorrow Sometimes Comes by F.G. Raya. I'll see what that's like. 3 Brian Stableford books, all of which reasonably priced, all of which continuing a series I've got at least one book of already, and all of which in pretty good condition. So, Critical Threshold, White Blood's Empire, and The City of the Sun. Digit books. I do seem to be picking up quite a few digit books on this trip, which is no bad thing. But Search the Sky, C.M. Kornbluth and Frederick Pohl. From the author of The Possessors, a Wyndham-like terrifier which exposes the horrors of a world too similar to our own. This is Pendulum from John Christopher. I love John Christopher. The Tripods, The Death of Grass, The World in Winter, A Wrinkle in the Skin. Empty World, and one here I've not read. Corgi Books, Born Leader, New Worlds, New Peril, from J.T. McIntosh. I read recently my first Keith Roberts book and enjoyed it immensely. That was The Furies. This is Kite World. And some westerns. And the second Louis L'Amour of the day, Dark Canyon. And a couple of Zane Grey books. Well, actually 3 Zane Grey books, but 2 in not only the same range, but owned by the same person. John Thomas Simpson of Brandon Colliery. And the reason I'm reading the inscription out here is because this is the only way I'm able to date the book. There is no date given by the publisher, but this was given to John from Steve and Lizzie on August the 14th, 1920. It is The Lone Star Ranger. Also owned by John Simpson, The Border Legion. 30 years later, and Zane Grey is still popular, Garsdale Foot Sunday School presented to Norman Harper on January the 2nd, 1950. Knights of the Range. If I ever get starved of content ideas, I'm just going to start asking people questions from the top of the form quiz book from BBC TV from 1968. A hard copy of a book I was planning to read this coming year anyway, and that is Aisha from H. Rider Haggard. I read She earlier this year, enjoyed it immensely, want to get on with the sequel. Something for Christmas now, A Christmas Story by F. Marion Crawford, The Little City of Hope. So definitely one I should be getting to at the end of the year. It's, I think, given how the pages are set out, it's going to be a fairly quick read, especially seeing as it also has pictures in it. The Little City of Hope seems to be New York, from literally just from flicking through this. I've not read F. Marion Crawford before, but he did write Khaled, which is a book I own, which is like an Arabian tale and part of the Ballantine adult fantasy series. And finally, for today, I saw a Lawrence van der Post hardback from the Hogarth Press, which I did not own, so snapped it up. The Hunter and the Whale. That was Sedbergh, and that was the second of my haul videos. Not on the scale as Hay on Wye, but worth a visit if you're in that area. And if you go to Westwood Books and you like your sci-fi and fantasy, the sci-fi fantasy section at the front of the store is only one of the sections. Walk right to the back, and in a little cupboard there's some other stuff there as well. That's my top tip for the day. Until next time.